Hello, and welcome back to Business by the Books, the podcast that teaches you how to use your financials to better manage your business. Kathy, welcome to Business by the Books.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
Tell the audience a little bit about who you are and who you serve today.
I am the CEO and founder of the Photo Managers, which I started 16 years ago, and I serve our member community, which are small business owners who are starting and building ongoing, thriving businesses, helping families and businesses manage their overwhelming number of photos, slides, videos, negatives, kids' artwork, keepsake items, letters, all the things that we care most about that we'd be devastated if we lost in a fire or flood or whatever. And it's a growing profession. It's kind of like a niche within residential organizing, but it's all around photos and memories and legacy storytelling and things.
So you work with other business owners.
I do. I support other business owners, really. That is, we're the big umbrella organization of which small business owners join us as like a trade association, but we're not really a trade association. We're a membership community.
Yeah. I've heard you talk about the big umbrella before. What does that mean when you're thinking about your business? What all do you hold under your umbrella?
That's a good point. Well, I always like to say we're agnostic and not, which is an interesting phrase. In the photo industry, there's numbers of companies. Like there was one time Creative Memories, which was scrapbooking, and everybody, if you represented that product, you only sold that particular product. And early on, I had a background in that. I knew that if we were entering in the world of, some people are Apple users, some people are on, Android phones, some people use they like Shutterfly for their photo books, some people like other products. So what I mean is we're a big tent, and that we interact with all companies that have good products and values, and our members, we introduce them to our members as a way to then share with their clients. So that big tent means that we are not tied to one company or one product.
All right. I want to talk to you about how you use your numbers to make business decisions. But before I go there, you've been working with Kickstart for a few years now. Can you tell me a little bit about how you felt about your financials, bookkeeping, reading and using your numbers before you started working with us?
Yeah, I'm going to say without you prompting me that Kickstart accounting really, when I started, I switched to, I feel like my business is so much healthier. It's a different business. So I've always been a person who says, I don't understand my numbers. I'm sure you hear that. I'm a right-brain creative. And I think people are surprised by that. I've learned that I can understand them. It's not intuitive to me. So it just doesn't come naturally to me. Somebody recently said, I think more like a kitchen cookie jar. Like I think about money, like in the cookie jar kind of. It's true. I think of it like that. And it's hard for me to change that thinking, but working with, first of all, having a dedicated person every Friday send me, I was able to design what I wanted. And once I realized that it would be really helpful for me to know what kind of revenue is coming in every month, what kind of revenue was going out every week. So every Friday I get my weekly report from Katie, and I run my whole business from that report every Friday. And that's just instead of monthly, because I think it was overwhelming for me to have somebody review my numbers with me monthly because I'd get lost within 5 minutes. But now, because it's every week, it all makes sense because I'm in my numbers almost every day, but definitely every week. And that was a big change for me.
You said you're running your business based on that. What decisions do you feel like you're making? Because I think people hear all the time, use your numbers to make decisions. Your numbers are trying to tell you a story. And I think that we have a hard time actually grasping at what does that mean? So what type of decisions are you making week to week?
Well, one of the best things is for the first time in the last year, I've actually been able to make future decisions because I have money set aside for expenses, like say marketing. So I actually moved to where I have like 3 different savings accounts in my checking accounts. Kind of, I forget who that person, it's a small scaled back version of the person who has you put all the money in all
Profit-first.
Yeah, it's a scaled back version of that. But Katie telling me what's in those accounts as well. And so now I was able to make decisions about, I know one of the things I want to do is improve our directory and do a big website overhaul. And that's not inexpensive. So I was able to get a budget. I know what the budget is. And I know when I can afford to actually say yes to that. In the past, I would have wanted it. I would have probably said yes. I would have used a combination of line of credit, maybe some credit card, and then just, prayed every month I could pay that stuff down because I know we needed it. Now I'm able to plan ahead and budget for what I need. And that's seems like basic accounting principles, but
no, I love it. That's the struggle of being a small business owner, right? I think there's a lot of value in that. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges that you've had as the CEO of your business, and how has your numbers helped you overcome some of those challenges?
Yeah, because I run so cash flow is a big issue as well. It's a subscription. Members pay and then they renew they renew every year. If ideal, we have like a 98.3% renewal rate, which is amazing. We're really
That's
getting into
high.
and
That's great.
understanding that way really high. And now we're really asking like, what are we doing right to make that happen? Where I wasn't even thinking to ask those questions in the past, but definitely in terms of knowing working with my numbers like that more. There's good months and bad months too. So that's now I
Of course.
know when my lean months are coming. When I was kind of surprised by them, and now I know. Like right now, actually, fourth quarter, believe it or not, can be a leaner month for us. Or lean quarter. So I'm prepared. I have money tucked aside for payroll and money tucked aside for other things because now I know that the fourth quarter is going to be a lean quarter. And I couldn't have done that immediately because when you're a new business first getting started, the first years, depending on how many years you've been doing it, really all cash that comes in is, you needed it to keep
Yeah.
the lights on, right? But I finally, by knowing my numbers better and planning better and saying no to decisions, I tended to be an optimist and say yes easily. Plus, I understood what I needed to do to grow. And I kept thinking, all right, I'm going to say yes to this. I'm going to say yes to that. I don't say yes as quickly anymore. And sometimes I'll check in before with like Katie or with my bookkeepers and say, hey, I'm thinking about saying yes to this. Can we take a look at what this looks like? And she'll like pull up my spreadsheet for me and walk me through it. And I'm able to make a much better decision.
I love that you actually use the team, and we have a lot of clients who they have us to lean on and to call us when they're making those decisions. Talk to me about how you started to say, "Okay, I have this team behind me and I could call them and help me make this decision together." It sounds simple, but
It does, I think it took me a while to realize that they really were my team. I think having that consistency really mattered over time and to realize that she knows my numbers probably better than I do. But having the same person, I think you've done a great job obviously as an employee without like huge, I'm sure it's hard to keep people and I know that none of that's easy. And, but that's been really helpful having the same person consistently. And then it's not just, I also know Kelsey, who was my first person, and then she got her promotion, which she deserved. And then, but you trained, Katie was trained under her, and I noticed there's always somebody on the email right now, and so I know you're obviously training somebody underneath Katie, so there's that consistency. I'm just assuming that's what's happening,
yep.
but
Yeah, you got it.
yeah, it makes total sense to me. That's what you're doing, and I think the Friday report, I don't remember how Katie might have said, well, I can send you that information. And it was like, oh, so I keep updating what I want because I realize that's really good information for me. And so if she's, and it's not a lot of, obviously I'm not burdening her. I'm not asking for more than what I'd be paid for. And so I think that realization, I think if you're listening to this and you start out and you don't know what questions to ask them to tell you what should you know? And then just get that report on Fridays. And now I think when we did our budget, I think last year or the past 2 years, I've said yes to doing the annual budget. And so now I
Mhm.
have a monthly call with Katie for a half an hour. It's on my calendar where she walks me through my budget because I realized it didn't matter that I had a budget. I still didn't know how to read the budget very well. And I just realized, you know what? Can you walk me through this budget every month so that I make sure I'm understanding what the budget looks like? And she was like, sure. So it's on our calendar. And I jump on the call and we go through the
Love
budget.
it.
So both those things have made a big difference for me.
Yeah, simple.
Yeah, not right,
Yeah.
but it takes time to do it, and I think I've probably canceled a number of those calls, but because something comes up. But really, they're important calls because I love what I do, and I don't love the numbers, but the numbers are what allow me to do what I do.
Yes, you need accurate bookkeeping to file taxes or apply for that loan. But honestly, that's not the real reason. The real reason is because bad bookkeeping, it's hiding all of your problems. At Kickstart Accounting, we've seen it all. Doubled income, missing expenses, and air quote, healthy looking QuickBooks dashboards that are just masking financial chaos. QuickBooks and AI tools, they won't tell you when your data is wrong. They just make it look pretty. And that's why we created the Check Your Book service. Our team of real human experts run a 25-point accuracy review of your QuickBooks, checking every transaction, every reconciliation, and every balance sheet line. Then we record a personalized video walkthrough so you know exactly what's right, what's wrong, and how healthy your books really are. No more guessing, no more pretending everything's fine. It's humans to human, walking you through the truth about your business. Now, if you're ready for this, go to kickstartaccountinginc.com/checkyourbooks. We'll get started today so that you can step into your role as CEO with confidence. So we talked a little bit about the weekly review that you receive. When you look at the monthly snapshot, I'd like to consider that the report where we're doing the analysis for you, giving you that CEO level, high level overview of the numbers. How has seeing it in that format helped you be able to simplify the numbers or simplify the decisions?
I think, it's a good question too, because it's in an email. It's not a spreadsheet. It's not a profit and loss statement. It's not it's not a P&L. Which has got all that stuff on it. It's only what I need to know. It's like 5 things. How much revenue came in for conference, that is deferred revenue. So I know how much money came in, for different things like that. And so it just, how much money is going to come in next month based on renewals. And it's just like, it's 5 simple lines. And then I never delete it until the next one comes in, because I'll refer back to it. Like, I need to know that information. And but if you send me my profit and loss statement or my balance sheet, I just don't, right off the bat, I'm like, what?
I know, it's so much information.
Yeah.
It's just and the format of a spreadsheet with lots of numbers on it. I don't know what it is.
And I don't know how to format a Excel spreadsheet. I said, I know how to do the sum because I know the little thing up in the corner, but that's how, so I'm not going to create, Katie can get in there and do the math really fast and change the formulas in the Excel spreadsheet. It looks great when she does it, but I'm not going to do that. So that's really helpful as well. And I just don't, I'm never going to learn that.
Nor should you need to.
Yeah. I would have had to learn it when I was, when I would be using it every day or something, but I don't. So
What's one other big decision that you've made over the last few years that you've been able to use your numbers to give you the confidence to make that business decision?
hiring. So that's been another big, I learned that early, from coaching I've done and things about really you need to hire you're always so afraid to hire, but hiring is what's going to help your business scale. And so can I really do that? Taking the leap to add my first employee, use Gusto as my payroll. Katie sends me a note a week beforehand what payroll is going to be. And so I have my little money tucked aside because I was always worried about what if I couldn't meet payroll. I'd be terrified. I just would feel terrible if I didn't have the money. And so that's really that was a big decision, because that hiring my first full-time employee and then also giving her cost of living raises and then raises has really helped. So when I sit down and look at 2026, when we sit down and do my budget forecasting, I know I want to give probably a merit raise to my employee because she's doing such a great job and I don't want to lose her. And so I need to know that what should that number be and can I afford it? And if it's more than what I think, what do I need to bring in from a sales perspective to meet that? And then I also was able to hire a VA, a virtual assistant, and I was able to, based again on the projections of my budget, I was able to know how many hours I could afford. And so I've been able to add that person, and that's made a big difference. So all of those, having a good team, I have a great team, and I didn't have a good team for a long time. And once I got the right personnel in place, but also knowing that I don't worry about, can I afford them?
Yeah.
And that's a big stressor that's been relieved.
You said in there that if you don't have the sales, you know what sales you need to bring in.
Yeah.
And I think that's a visionary statement. And I just wanted to hold on to that, because it's not always that we say we can't afford or we can't afford something, whether it be a new team member, I want to hire a coach, I want to make this investment, but it's knowing what I need to bring into my business, like a backwards break even analysis of, okay, that's the sales I need to bring in so that I can move forward confidently with that decision. So we're not just saying, let me buy it and I'll make it up on the back end.
Yeah. And that's my superpower, right? Not knowing my numbers, but I am a good salesperson or visionary. I recognize that revenue is king, and and I'm creative. I can be creative in finding new ways to bring in revenue, but if I don't need to, I don't want to be that creative, because it takes work. There is work involved in like going after a new client or, a new partner, or different ways that I've put things together. The other thing that really helped me was realizing that I have 4 products. Like the idea of, I remember I was in a mastermind group and they'd say, what's the profitability of each of your products? And I would scratch my head. I didn't even know what they were talking about, and finally realized I have 4, for me, it's member subscription membership, but it's also what we call our sponsors or partners. And then it's our courses, and then it's our conference or our events. So those are and I was able to set up my QuickBooks and have them analyze that. What are the profit margins on each of those 4 lines of business? And that's really helped me understand I just have to make sure that I'm doing well in all 4 of those buckets and what's in each of those buckets. So for me, that's made a big difference instead of seeing it as one big mess kind of.
Just sales. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have some people who like to see it broken down and other people who say all these categories are confusing. So I think finding the right way for you and your business, how many streams of income do you want to be looking at? And what does it mean for your business decisions? What business decisions are you going to make based on that breakout?
If you don't know, I mean, I didn't know my percentages. Now I do. So I know where to put my attention.
Yeah.
When I have some time, it's really important. Yeah.
If somebody was on the fence about, I don't know if I need a money team. I don't know if I need a bookkeeper. I don't know if I want to work with Kickstart as my bookkeeping and tax partner. What would be something that you would say to them to help them make that decision?
Yeah. If you're in business to make money, and if you're in business, because we, even in our membership community, it's fine. I just talked to a woman right before, and she's going to join. She said, well, I really want a small business. I don't want to have employees. I don't want my husband. I'm this age. My husband has some health issues and I want some flexibility, so I think she still could use a bookkeeper unless she's good. Maybe she could start out without one, but so that's a different story. But if you're saying to yourself, you know what, I'm committed to growing a business where I pay myself in time a livable wage. And, maybe I want to sell my business someday, or I want to, then I don't think you can do it without a money team, because you do what you do well and let the money team do what they do well. And that's the key. And it's an investment, but in my opinion, it's just the cost of doing business at this point. I think I was resistant, just like everybody at first, because it's, when you're new starting out, every dollar feels like but I feel like your rates are reasonable. I love the fact that when I found Kickstart Accounting, it's entrepreneur. Danielle's an entrepreneur. You come from a corporate background. I feel like your team knows the struggles of entrepreneurs. You're working with small businesses. I just talked about the difference between, I just learned about GAAP accounting and cash accounting. And you were like, oh yeah, all 90% of all small businesses use cash accounting, right? I mean, money comes in and money goes out. That's how it works. Yes. And you understand that. You're not an accountant who's saying, oh no, that's not proper accounting techniques, because you understand the struggles that small businesses face. So then it's a team. And when I actually talk about my team, I mentioned Kickstart Accounting. When I introduce the photo managers to new members, I'm like, this is our virtual assistant. This is our, and we have a bookkeeping team. And I just add it like, this is part of so they know that they're joining an established business, and that they see me investing in the things that matter.
Oh, setting an example for your community.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything that I didn't ask you today that you wish I would have, or any last closing thoughts that you want to share?
I think for people like me who felt a lot of imposter syndrome and insecurity around my lack of knowledge and feel like not as smart as other people. I mean, how women, or I think not just women, but certainly women in particular, we can be really hard on ourselves. I think it's really important to just know what you're good at, and to let the people that know what they're doing be good at that, and not be, I spent a lot of energy beating myself up that I wasn't better with my numbers. And once I made this switch, I don't have that. I let that go. That's one less thing I have to tell myself. Yeah. One less thing to shame myself about for no reason. Because I thought, no, now I reframe it and say, how smart are you that you found, you took your time. I had some, I definitely had I've been through a number of bookkeepers, but once I found the right group, I stuck with it. I haven't shifted. I've been committed, and they've been just as committed back to me, which has been really nice too. So it's a mutual commitment, and that's a real partnership.
I appreciate you sharing all that. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed hearing Kathy's story and her experience here at Kickstart Accounting Inc. I want to invite you to step into your zone of genius. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to be a bookkeeper or to know everything about the tax code. I want to invite you to become the CEO of your business, to be able to look at the numbers, be able to make business decisions, and have a money team behind you that can help be there to celebrate with you and to support you when times are not going well. I hope you enjoyed hearing the simple ways that Kathy has been able to use her numbers to make business decisions. If you would like to tell your story on Business by the Books, you can join us at kickstartaccountinginc.com/BBB.